everyone. Welcome to Monday, August 21st, 2023. You're watching the main event. And before we get into the broadcast, I was having some audio issues coming into this. That's why we're later than I even advertised we're going to be today. And I don't know if the audio is coming through for you guys to hear. So let me know in the chat room. Say you can hear me or you can't hear me. Let me know, because if you can't, then I'm just moving my mouth and you can't see or hear what's going on. There we go. Sound good and clear. Thanks, Nico. All right. Confirmation that things are working. That's always a good thing. So welcome to the main event. My name is Joe Tillman. If you don't know who I am or what I'm doing here, I'm a, 21-year veteran of the hair transplant industry and a 30-year veteran of surgical hair restoration. What does that mean? Well, it means I had not one, but two bad hair transplants way back in the early 1990s, and I suffered through the next 9 years of my adult life, continuing to lose hair at an accelerated rate. And part of the reason why I was at an accelerated rate was because of what's known as shock loss. And I bring that part up because I've had some people ask me recently about shock loss, not realizing that there are different kinds of shock loss. So that was kind of in the back of my mind. But I lost a lot of hair at an early age rapidly. And it sucked. It really did. So fast forward 9 years, living in a different part of the country, wound up having a great repair session with Dr. Jerry Wong of Hassanawong in Vancouver, British Columbia, and that is all she wrote. My life was changed. I became passionate about hair loss and hair restoration surgery, and it became my career about a year and a half later. And I've been doing this ever since. And I remember calculating how many actual clinical consultations I've done when I was working in clinic. And I think that the number was north of 50,000 because I was in charge of all the online consultations at the clinic. Not even all of them, but most of them, depending on the source of where they came from. And I did most of the in-house consultations as well. So I have a lot of experience performing hair restoration consultations. And it's been a hell of a ride. But here we are today, August 21st, 2023, and you're watching the main event on the Hair Transplant channel, which is the official YouTube channel for hairtransplantmentor.com. It's the website I started many, many years ago originally to document my progress for my family, because they were worried about what I was about to go through. Like, you're doing what again? And it just kind of grew from that. And so now today, it represents not nearly all the knowledge I've gained over the years, but it's a great resource for those of you that are looking for basic information. I don't get too deep into the subjects in some of the articles and blog posts and terms and definitions. I think terms and definitions, I get a little more involved than people realize the subject is, which is a subject for later on. But I also list out different doctors that I work with that I have personally reviewed based on my standards and my experience in the industry, and I have felt that they are worth your consideration. And I say that in those words because I think it's very important to differentiate how I present these doctors compared to how maybe some other places or people present doctors they work with. I say that they're worth your consideration. And I say that because, and I've always said that, I have never once said that any doctor I work with is the best in the world. And there's a very specific reason for that. Two reasons, actually. Number one, I don't believe there is such a thing. I don't believe there is that one best doctor in the world. He or she doesn't exist. It's only the best one for you and your needs. But I also don't say the best because I know how these not these particular doctors, but I know how hair transplant doctors and clinics operate, no pun intended, how they conduct themselves, and I know that shit happens. And sometimes clinics can change as far as their, should I say, modus operandi. Again, no pun intended. But I know that there is no consistency as far as that type of. I can't say there's no consistency, but I know that there's always a caveat. So I never want to be in a position where someone says, "You said they were the best." Those are the two big reasons. But someone was saying recently that I chose so-and-so because Tillman said that they were the best. I challenge anyone to find a quote where I say that anyone was the best. Doesn't exist. Maybe when I worked for my doctor at one point, I may have said that. But that was before. But since I've been the hair transplant mentor, I've never said that. So kind of wanted to get that off my chest. But that also segues into the, how can I say, the kind of like the topic I wanted to touch on. Just, it's not a big deal, but I want to let you guys know that part of the reason why I've been offline for several days is because I've been researching and working on a project where I'm hoping I can bring a lot more content to the channel a lot more frequently. I've been pretty infrequent aside from this live stream and the one on Friday with content uploads. I'm working on a solution to where it'll be much more frequent, and it's going to be very solid, basic information that anyone can use. Clinics can use this to share with their patients for explanations of concepts and different aspects of hair restoration surgery and or hair loss, things of that nature. And one thing I'm not sure I want to do is actually have it on this channel. I'm considering starting a new channel just for this content. What do you guys think about that? Let me know down in the comment section. Don't put it in the chat section because I won't be able to see it later on. The chat disappears. I only have access to it for a little while. Put down in the comment section if you think I should start a new channel for specific, you could almost call it terms and definitions video. And then, of course, linking back and forth with this channel, but starting a brand new channel for very fresh and unique content that's going to be uploaded on a regular basis. Let me know what you think of that. If I should start a new channel or maybe keep all the content uniquely into its own playlist on the hair transplant channel specifically. There are pros and cons to both. This isn't an SEO question. This is strictly a convenience question because I know that when I go to a channel, sometimes it's hard to find what it is exactly I want. Even if I have a pretty good idea of what I'm looking for, it's not always easy. And yes, you can use a search bar, but playlists are not supposed to be found through the search. You're supposed to be able to look at the playlist through the thumbnail and the organization on the channel. But give me your thoughts on that down in the comment section. If you're watching this live and or you're watching this during the rerun later on. And what was it? There's something else I wanted to bring up. Can't remember exactly what it was. But while I'm trying to think of that, feel free to give me a call if you got any questions about hair loss or hair restoration surgery. The number is right over here in the corner. It's 1-833-563-4247. Hopefully I didn't screw up the sound where that's not going to work either. But give it a shot. Give me a call, and happy to answer your questions. But I'm trying to remember what the hell else I wanted to talk to you guys about or let you guys know about. Oh, yes. Let me know also if you guys... When you go to YouTube and you're looking for hair transplant content or hair restoration content, what is it exactly that you type in? Do you type in hair transplants? There's a reason why I'm asking this, because, I mean, it may seem like an obvious thing that people do, hair transplants or hairlines or whatever, but I'm wondering what kind of results you get, because earlier today I thought, well, I'll see what's going on in the world of YouTube and hair transplant surgery, so I typed in hair transplants. First several results were predictable, and then I started to see nothing but videos from India, pages and pages of hair transplant videos from India, and not in English. And it was bizarre to me. And I did I did a little bit of research into that, and it turns out that India is responsible for roughly 75% of all videos. I don't know what the category was. I saw that when I was just skimming through, and I thought, well, that explains a lot. And it says that if you want to if you want to filter out that kind of content, you can type in hair transplant English, and the algorithm knows what you're looking for. But I've never had to do that before, and I've noticed that recently, not just today, but I've noticed it. FSK, that's good. I noticed that fairly recently, where if I need to find something, I get inundated with Indian videos. Just crazy. All right, so we got a phone call here. Hey, you're on the main event. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, Joe. It's May from Kazakhstan. How are you?
May, I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm okay.
Excellent. Just want to make sure everyone in the chat room, you can hear May. Give me a yes or no in the chat room, just so I can make sure that his audio is coming through. And should be getting something here in just a second. May, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good.
Excellent. What can I help you with?
Yeah. It's analysis paralysis, as always.
Analysis paralysis. Okay. Let's hear it.
Do you break down such stats like number of singles transplanted during one operation? And the question. So let me list. That would be quick questions. So do you how many singles you have transplanted on you, right, or to you?
Yeah. I understand what you're asking. I don't recall. All of my surgeries, yes, it was broken down. It was listed out, singles, doubles, and then the way that the clinic operates is they'll say ones, twos, and bigs. Bigs being either 3 hair grafts or 4 hair grafts, because they would be mixed in the same. They would go in the same size incision, and that's why those are broken down. Because obviously a single goes into a smaller incision, a double goes into one that's slightly bigger, and then triples and quads can go into one that's bigger still. So I do have that information somewhere. I just don't remember off the top of my head. I don't remember how many grafts I have. I got like 11,000, I think. I don't remember. I haven't thought about that in years. So sorry I don't have that ready for you.
Yeah, but perhaps that would be useful information, because when you think about naturalness of your or of our hairline, maybe we can assume that the more singles are transplanted, the better of the naturalness.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Well, yes, but there's it's a double-edged sword to have more singles. You don't need to have more singles. You have to have the appropriate number of singles for each case, and each case is going to be different. So, for instance,
well, I thought too much will never be too much.
No, it can be too much, because if you have too many singles, as opposed to doubles and triples behind it. Like there's only so much space that you should be putting singles into, because then it starts to look thin. So if you bring them, if you spread them towards behind the hairline because you have a lot more singles, then that frontal region will look thinner than if you do just the very front of the hairline with singles and then pack in doubles and triples behind it. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, let me break it down like this. You have a given area. Let's say your hairline is 15 centimeters long from one temple to the other. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit short, I think. Just remembering this off the top of my head from years ago. But if it's 15 centimeters long, how deep should that hairline be on any given patient? Well, in some patients, a quarter centimeter is fine. Other patients, half a centimeter. And that's about, and that I believe that's on the extreme side, not extreme, but on the aggressive side of moving singles further back. You don't want singles to take up the entire frontal hairline. You want them to be in the front of the hairline with doubles behind them. Because unless you're going for, like, there are certain situations where you can go for a lot more singles and spread them further back. But in most cases, you want to have doubles and triples behind those singles so that you don't have a hairline that looks too see-through. Like, there's always going to be some see-through, especially with one pass, but you don't want it to be too see-through. As long as it looks natural, that's better than thick and unnatural, if that makes sense. But the number of singles that you put in will determine how thin or thick it looks based on placement. It's kind of complicated to explain, I guess, but you don't want to pack like a full centimeter back with just singles. You want that to be more shallow.
So 1 centimeter back, so it is 2 or 3 rows of singles.
No.
Right?
No, it should be more than just... I'm not talking rows. We're just talking about numbers. You asked about the number of graphs, not rows of graphs. But the placement, whether it's rows or whatever, of singles usually doesn't go back a full centimeter. It's usually maybe half a centimeter. And depending on the case, it could be more shallow than that.
Or it depends on how thin.
It depends on a lot of things. Yeah. So why are you asking this? What's your situation looking like?
Well, I'm just think about second operation and maybe. So I think for now it looks pretty natural. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not saying, but anything that I experience anything negative right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think about second operation, and I think about operation for my, cousin, for my brother. Mm-hmm. The guy has a very thick hair, very, thicker than those Caucasian guys. Mm-hmm. And I think in his case, it is very important to make that hairline soft enough, Mm-hmm. And we look through the stats of different doctor stats, and we try to use that parameter like number of singles. For instance, Dr. Bisher, almost every operation she states that she transplanted at least 1,000 singles. Mm-hmm. And in average, she transplants 3.5 hair. 3.5 follicles or grafts, yeah? Mm-hmm. So 1,000, it is 1/3 of the overall number. So,
well, let me present something to you. If you're, are you thinking about going back to the clinic you first went to?
Well, no, that would be my first. That was my first decision. But
okay. And then your cousins, will they be going to the same clinic, or are they looking at alternative clinics?
Well, now we're talking about one cousin
or
one particular
whatever.
person.
Yeah, one person. Yeah.
And no, we think about how to choose right doctor.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. Okay, I know where you're going with this, and I understand why you're looking at the number of singles. It makes perfect sense. I understand 100%, but it's not necessary. In fact, if you are relying on statistics like this or measurements like this to determine a clinic that's right for, and this isn't just for you, May, this is for everyone watching and listening, just to determine which clinic is right for you, then you're potentially making a mistake, because you don't need to have an average. You don't need to look at a clinic and say, okay, well, they average X number of single hair grafts for the hairline, because you've looked at, say, 10 patients, you got the graft counts, and you averaged out, what they usually do. So, like, say, Clinic X, they usually do 1,000 grafts, single hair grafts in the hairline. Sometimes they'll do 700, sometimes they'll do 1,300. So let's say you look at their average over, say, 10 patients, and it's around 900 to 1,000 single hair grafts in the hairline. Okay, fine. But then you look at another clinic, and they might average less by 500 grafts, half. You look at the results, and both of them look really natural. Are you going to choose a clinic because they have an average of more single hair grafts than the other clinic, even though the other clinic looks just as natural? In other words, you don't see an unhealthy amount of doubles in the hairline. You see mostly singles, just like you do with these other clinics, because no clinic can. When they say, we're transplanting singles into the hairline, they can't always guarantee that a couple of those won't turn into doubles because one of the technicians didn't see it properly or refined it incorrectly. That happens almost all the time. But the problem becomes, are they inexperienced or are they reckless to where you have just a lot of doubles in the hairline and they distract you from looking at the hairline? Like it automatically looks unnatural. So you have to understand what's important. Is it the numbers or is it the aesthetic? Those are not the same thing. If you have a higher number of single hair grafts, it does not automatically translate into a better aesthetic, because it depends on what you're looking for. But if it's simply natural results or a natural growth to where you would look at it, or anyone that's educated would look at it, and they would have a hard time determining if it's surgery, then don't rely just on the numbers. Rely on your eyeballs. That's what matters, because single hair grafts does not determine naturalness alone. You also need to look at angle, direction, how it's blended into the native hair, if there is any native hair. You have to look at the design of the hairline. Are the corners too abrupt? Are they too broad with their curvature? Like, all these other things are what you need to look at. The number of single hair grafts overall is irrelevant. It's just how those single hair grafts are used, and is there enough in the frontal hairline to where it doesn't look pluggy. That's it. So if one person does 1,000 hairs and the other one does 500, it doesn't really matter as long as either one looks natural.
Yeah, that These all common sense, of course.
Yeah.
Well, as far as I know or understand, I know aesthetics will include three major things. Like it is for my understanding, for my small understanding, if I can say so.
Yeah, of course.
It is angles, first directions, and naturalness. And by the third, naturalness, I mean the softness of the hairline. You know, if all other variables are the same, I think I would choose that doctor who is able, at least, to who does more singles and who is, of course, able to do more singles. You know, and that leads to the question that, you know, those doctors who do strips and don't do FUE, right? But I believe there is no such doctors.
There isn't. They don't. Well, they do exist, but you don't know about them, and you'd never consider them anyway.
So, so as far as I understand that, if they do strip, and if they see that they don't have enough singles from that particular strip, they do FUE in addition, to get more singles.
That's not, well, it's not, they don't have to do FUE to do that. They can simply make singles out of any doubles or triples that they get. That's how it was done in top clinics for many, many years. My hairline, which is all singles, was not created with FUE. It was created where in the clinic where the technician was using a microscope to create singles out of doubles. Yeah.
Dissecting, right?
Yeah.
So no difference between dissected singles and original singles.
Not in the final outcome when they're both growing. No.
Well, you know, I thought maybe original singles would be better.
I don't see why.
You know, you putting out a single, and when you dissect, you have to dissect it properly. I don't know how dissection is made, by the way. You know, you have to use your hand coordination and scalpel.
Well, yeah, but I mean, assuming all things are equal, assuming you can create the singles properly, once that single is created safely, properly, then there's no difference between that and a naturally occurring single hair graft.
Okay, and you are the example, right? As you said, all your singles are from the strip.
Yes.
Maybe they were original singles, but many of them, I think, are dissected, right?
Yes. That was that's what FUT means. It means follicular unit transplantation. It was before FUE came along. And the reason why it was called follicular unit transplantation, here's a little bit of history for you guys listening and watching. Follicular unit transplantation did not mean strip. It means strip now because FUE has come along, but originally was the name of strip surgery that separated it from mini micrografting. Mini micrografting was for about, I'd say 7 years, give or take, maybe 8 years. That was the dominant type of strip surgery. It was before microscopes were brought into the clinics, and that's what improved the naturalness of results was the microscope, because with microscopes you could visualize proper follicular units. You couldn't see them so well before because you were using loops, jeweler's loops. That was the standard. Microscopes were introduced by Bobby Limmer at San Antonio, Texas. He'd already been using them for years. That's why his results look so good. He finally presented at a conference, I think it was at a conference, his secret, and he was using stereoscopic dissecting microscopes. Very high quality ones.
What year?
90, I think, maybe it was 88. I'm getting my dates mixed up. Maybe 88, 92. I don't remember which exactly, but it doesn't matter. Early 90s to late 80s. And like everything else in hair transplant surgery, it was very slow to be adopted. All the big names in the industry, all of them were saying, can't be done, too much damage to the grafts, not necessary. The grafts won't survive because they're too delicate. All these claims. And then over the course of just a few years, all those claims, or the doctors making those claims, they shut the hell up because they realized that they were wrong. And they started to do perform the procedure themselves using microscopes, and it's not intuitive. It's not something you can just pick up and start doing. You have to work your way into it. You have to get used to it. And eventually, it became the standard. And that's what separated good strip surgery with microscopes from bad strip surgery with mini micrografting. Mini micrografting was fine as it was. I mean, if you had a good doctor who knew what he was doing, you could still get pretty good results. But the microscope made it that much better. Not to mention, it increased the survival rates of the grafts. The studies were done in the mid-90s on this, and it was determined that using microscopes increased survival rates by 30%. That's a big deal. It turns out that when you can see what the hell you're doing, it makes it a bit easier not to kill everything. Right? So that was the standard. And as FUE came onto the scene, FUT simply meant strip surgery. That's what it was. But a funny thing happened as FUE became more popular. The people that were performing FUE at the beginning, they were already strip surgeons. Like it's common sense. Like you don't have just new people coming in picking up FUE because no one knew how to do it. There was no one around to train people. But as the doctors that were performing FUT got better with FUE, they're all terrible in the very beginning. No one will tell you that they were super good at the beginning. I mean, it was very difficult. But over the years, and it didn't take long, like probably 4 years after it became a thing in North America, you had these companies that were creating devices to allow anyone to perform FUE surgery. And that is why you don't have microscopes in most of these FUE clinics, because they didn't know they were necessary. They were sold these machines, these automated devices. They were told all you need is one or two technicians to help. Low overhead, low investment for a huge return. No one said anything to these doctors or these clinics about, you need to invest in microscopes, at $4,000 a pop, $5,000 a pop. You need to train your technicians. You need to learn yourself, and then you can train your technicians how to use these microscopes, which takes months before you can become proficient. And that's why most FUE clinics absolutely suck. They suck. They're terrible. No question about it. So to circle back to the original question, or the original subject of single hair grafts and FUT, you can get better single hair grafts using microscopes. Doesn't matter if it's FUT or FUE, than without. That's why I talk about microscopes so much, starting with that video I put out 6 years ago. Kyle Christie, the celebrity hair transplant disaster, the Kyle Christie effect. I changed the title at one point, but that one that's gotten, 650,000 views, where I talk about the microscopes. And that that in turn has helped a lot of people understand, single hair grafts. Okay, great. And basically the only way to ensure that you get single hair grafts is, wait for it, microscopes. Proper stereoscopic dissecting microscopes. Sorry for the rant, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. I was about to call Spencer to stop you. Sorry. That's a joke.
Yes, I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
All right.
I would ask you for the future to provide the number of your singles and how many centimeters your head in length or your hairline.
I don't remember. Maybe I don't know.
Well, if you provide us with this information, that would be helpful and interesting, at least. Your hair, well, at least in that distance, it looks, your hairline looks pretty soft because I don't see how the hairs, where they grow from, they like grow from, from air. And that looks good. And I think
here we go.
is because you have a large number of singles. So this is my preliminary understanding, something like that.
Well, if I have time and I think of it, then I'll see if I can find my my surgical statistics, the numbers, and I'll share them at a future date. It will not be my priority, but I will see if I can remember that, okay? And I'll share it with you, and we can talk about it again. You can call in and ask more questions about it. Sound good?
Yeah, I will call and I will ask you.
All right. Well, I'm sure you will. All right, May. Good hearing from you. I'm going to go ahead and open the line up for another caller, but you have yourself a good night, and thank you for staying up late to call in. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I like your show.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Take care of yourself. All right. Got another caller. Hey, you're on the main event. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Alex from San Diego.
Alex from San Diego. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
Excellent. Yeah, good to hear from you. Real quick, to answer someone in the chat room, someone says, Joel G says, does Dr. Wong and Hassan use microscopes? Yes, absolutely. That's where I got all my knowledge regarding the subject matter from sitting in front of the microscope. I learned how to actually dissect grafts using microscopes early on in my career, and I would not want to do that full time. It's a pain in the ass. Okay, back to you, buddy. What can I help you with today?
Yeah, so, a little bit about me. I'm 34, and my hair loss pattern's not really depicted on the Norwood scale super accurately, but it's basically like aggressive recession in the front with this frontal forelock peninsula, sort of like Jude Law, like that Jude Law.
Yeah. You got a isolated forelock, yeah.
Right, yeah. There's a picture of him from like 2013 with a buzzed head, and that's kind of how I look now.
Yeah.
So,
and how much loss do you have behind it?
Not a ton. I would say just a little bit of miniaturization in the mid scalp and crown, but it's nothing too garish, or it's not overly thinned out. So, if I was under a really bright light, just a little bit of Topic would take care of it. So
so
I'm not too concerned about that area.
So it's not an isolated forelock. It's just the corners have deeply receded, but they haven't met up behind your forelock. Correct?
Oh, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to
Okay. So you would be a deep Norwood 3 most likely.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So no, that makes more sense than you said. It's not an island.
Okay.
Just a peninsula.
Yeah. There you go. Good. Yeah, I like that. Okay. All right. So let me ask you this: are you taking any sort of medication? Finasteride, dutasteride, minoxidil, in any of those medications in any forms, topical or oral?
Yep, I've been on generic finasteride, 1 milligram a day for the last 5 years, pretty much.
Okay, generic finasteride for 5 years. Okay, and how's that working out for you?
It's been pretty good. I feel as though it probably has just been keeping things in place for the most part, but they did change manufacturers at one point. It's through Keeps.
Damn them.
Getting it, and
Yeah.
Yep, they changed it about maybe like a year and a half ago, and I was taking notice on every bottle to see, and
why was
sure
that?
enough,
why was that? Why were you paying attention to the bottle?
From watching you and Spencer.
There we go. All right, save another one. That's what I like to hear. All right, good stuff.
Yeah, no, thanks.
So, but you're saying that Keeps changed the source.
They did. It was I forget the name of the first place. It was someplace in India, and now it's this place called Alchem, also in India. But so, as far as I know, that's a different,
Did it happen
facility.
to say Finpecia on the box?
Did you say Finpecia? Finpecia?
Finpecia, yeah.
I didn't notice anything like that.
Okay. Or it just said finasteride.
Yeah, it just says finasteride tablets, 1 milligram.
Okay. Interesting that I've never ordered from Keeps. I've never seen a box that comes from Keeps or Hims or any of these guys. So I don't even know what it looks like. So you're telling me that they actually send you, it's not a Keeps branded box, which I guess wouldn't make sense, but it is a box that you would get just as if you'd walked into a pharmacy. Is that correct?
Well, the box I get, it's a box, and it has their logo on it, but inside it's 3 small bottles of tablets.
Okay. Interesting.
And on each bottle, it has a lot of like stickers. There's like kind of like that pharmacy sticker where it says, hey, my name and this and that and all that stuff.
Right.
But if you peel it back, you can see the manufacturer.
Okay.
And then I always looked at it, and so. But yeah, I mean, as far as no real side effects to speak of. So I just kind of felt like I'd keep taking it and see what happens. And who knows if this is why, but I feel like my thinning has started to increase a little bit.
Okay.
In the mid scalp and crown.
Okay.
But who knows?
And
just take a note of it.
And you said that they switched up the source about a year and a half ago?
Roughly around then. I want to say that in that kind of time window.
Okay.
Maybe it was a year, maybe it's a little more, but yeah, I did notice that.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, so I mean, I figured I'd just kind of keep taking it and not try and throw too much at it right now. I'm not using any minoxidil or anything like that.
Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's look, if you're noticing the loss starting to restart, basically, a lot of people will be losing their shit about now. Like, what? Oh God, what's going on? And you may be losing your shit. I don't know, but you sound like you're okay with it. Obviously it's a concern, but at this point, if you're not going to introduce anything new, that's fine. But if you want to see if you can halt this renewed loss, talk to your doctor about upping your dosage. Imagine you're taking. I'm not a doctor, but based on my experience, these things can help. Are you taking 1 milligram a day?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and is this is a 1 milligram tablet, or is it a 5 mil that you cut?
1 milligram tablet.
Okay. So you got a couple of options. The first option is stay the course, obviously. Second option, sorry, I say stay the course because this could be a temporary thing. I don't know what it looks like. I've not seen you. I don't know, you're just describing it to me on the phone, but it could be something temporary. You could be going through a moderate telogen effluvium simply due to your hair cycles syncing up with their their telogen phase, which happens. Sometimes, people can say, oh, I remember, 5 years ago when my hair was shedding like crazy, or it looked a lot thinner, and then about 6 months later, it looked better again. That can be where the growth cycles in different areas of the scalp are in sync. And then they get out of sync again, and then things return to relatively a normal look. That happens. Option 2 is to talk to your doctor and say, hey, I'm a little concerned, a little bit thinner on top. Let's talk about upping my dosage. Now, some doctors will say, oh, well, it's not, that wasn't approved by the FDA for more than 1 milligram. Well, it was, just not for hair loss. It was for prostate health, where the standard dosage is 5 milligrams to help with prostate issues, with benign prostate hyperplasia, which is enlarged prostate. So it's not like it's unheard of. And in fact, a lot of people with hair loss issues will take more than 1 milligram. I have in the past. I was taking 2.5 at one point. I know other people, like Spencer was taking, in the early days, he was taking 7.5, and then he was taking 5 like every other day for quite a while. But a lot of people have taken above the standard 1 milligram dosage. Some people take below that too. They'll take 1 milligram every other day, which equates to 0.5 milligram a day. So you have options about your dosage, and you can talk to your doctor about it, and they can actually prescribe it however you want, or however you guys agree on. So you can have, it can actually be on the prescription, 1.25 daily, and then you'll get a 5 milligram tablet that you cut in quarters, or 2.5 or whatever. You can also consider switching out to name brand Proscar 5 milligram. And because you're cutting it, it's not going to be so much of a hit to you as if you were to get the 1 milligram Propecia, name brand for hair loss. They cost about the same for 30 tablets. So if you're cutting Proscar into quarters, then you've effectively reduced the cost of Proscar by 75% if you're going to take just that 1.25 mil.
Right.
The other option is to consider introducing a second treatment into your routine, such as oral minoxidil. I don't say topical minoxidil because I've never been a believer in topical minoxidil, even with some results that I've seen where it's like, okay, that's pretty good. It does work for some people, but not nearly as much. I've always looked at topical minoxidil as having more downsides than upsides for most people, because most people get very little response positively, but they'll have negative side effects. Even moderate side effects like just greasy hair or inflamed scalp, things like this. And then the other side effects that are listed are heart palpitations and the stuff that can be more serious. I've never been a fan of it. This oral minoxidil thing that's going on, it's shocking the difference that people are seeing taking oral minoxidil. And, just like with everything, it doesn't work for everyone. But regarding the side effects, I can't recall any patients that I've ever talked to that said, maybe one, side effects were so bad they had to stop. So side effects with oral minoxidil don't seem to be an issue with most people. But the upside seems to be more common than with topical, and that is more growth or better growth. So that's something to consider. It's cheap as dirt. It's been around for 40 years. It used to be called Lonitin as a blood pressure medication. And that's how it originally was marketed and created, was for blood pressure. My father used to take it years ago. And ironically, when he stopped taking it, at the direction of his doctor, they switched him to something else. That's when his hair loss really kicked in, and he went to a Norwood 7. He was a 4-ish, like a week 4, up to that point. But afterwards, Armageddon, follicular Armageddon, poof, it went away. So Yeah, those are options. You could also look at non-medical options such as PRP, exosomes, laser caps, stuff like that, and you might have some success with that. But those are the other. Before you look into that, those are the ones that I recommend to people to consider for the highest probability of some sort of positive effect.
Interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. What are your thoughts on this sort of rumor that I've been hearing about excessive body hair growth, stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a potential side effect. Even with topical, I've seen that with topical, and read about with topical. But it could be benefit. Like if you have weak eyebrows, it can thicken your eyebrows. If you're one of these people that has an issue with a patchy beard, it can fill in the spots in your beard. And
sure,
if you start getting more hair in your arms, like how hairy are you now to where more hair in your arms would be a pain in the ass, right? It's not like you'll be braiding it or anything. So I consider that to be a very mild, maybe even an upside side effect.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, that seems like a good place to start. Yeah, thanks a bunch. I'm definitely going to look into that. And
okay.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Was that the only thing you wanted to ask about, or was that progressing into something else like surgery?
Yeah, it was. I was going to maybe mention surgery, but of course I don't want to take up too much time.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I'm glad to help.
Well, yeah, I would say, so for many years I've been doing the kind of hair sculpture thing where it's growing along, kind of, you know what I'm talking about. So,
oh yeah, I've been there. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and it's been working out, but of course, at least for me, it's just, the whole point of this whole journey is to feel free in our own bodies, right? And that's kind of the antithesis of feeling free, at least for me.
Yeah.
So I'm just getting so sick of it. And so for the third time, I've shaved my head down, fully exposed, trying to rock it, just full confidence. No sort of like negative pushback in my life that I could at least get at face value. But, and I do want to just mention anybody that hasn't tried that to really, really give that a shot first, because that might be, it could change your life, Yeah. And, but I think for me, it's not quite solving the issue that I'm dealing with. And so the only, it's led me to heavily consider surgery, I would say. I totally
understand what you're saying, and I'm very glad to hear that you have tried that, because and thank you for reiterating the importance of trying that, because I think a lot, far too many men either don't think of that, or they think, oh, it's not for me. Well, how do you know if you don't try it? If you try it and you don't like it, you're not fucked. It'll grow back quickly.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, you're not doomed to looking like that for the next 5 years. It'll grow back in a few months. So I'm glad that you said that. So thank you. And I think it's important to say to you, I'm just kind of formulating this in my head right now, but going through what you've been through, dealing with this and trying non-surgical, I commend you. And now you're at the point where, and you said something important, you're looking for the freedom. And shaving your head isn't the freedom that you're looking for. You could almost say it's a Band-Aid solution where it's like, okay, well, this is better, but there's the maintenance. You got to keep shaving your head every couple of days, to maintain the appearance, or, however often you do that and how short you keep it. I get it. The idea of a hair transplant is attractive because you're looking for that permanent fix. So you do have that freedom. I caution you on that take, because first off, one transplant is almost never the solution. You'll almost always need a second one, sometimes sooner rather than later. And you know where I'm going with this. You're a subscriber. You've been following me for a while. You've obviously been listening to the podcasts.
Yep.
But I just want you to be careful with that line of thinking, because you may not find that freedom that you're looking for. My case, as an example, still taking medication. Thankfully, touch wood, I don't see any progression of hair loss. Sometimes I question it, and maybe I have, but it's extremely minor. But I still think about it, and I'm still having to take the medication, so I'm not free. I'm still trapped. So if you're one of those kinds of people where you resent the fix because you have to keep taking the fix, then surgery might not be for you, because if you're continuing to lose hair or it's restarted, you still have to take the medication. That's not freedom. You know? I don't know. It's like, I don't know what's inside your head, but when you're saying these things, it makes me think, okay, well, maybe he needs a reminder that none of these options are freedom. It's just varying lesser degrees to variation of confinement, of prison. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fantastic way of putting that. And I mean, to be honest, I'm extremely, I would say, terrified of the idea of getting surgical hair restoration. I mean, I always have been, but because of that exact thing you mentioned, the lack of freedom. And I'm not even knocking it, because I understand that for a lot of people, just that pursuit and that kind of having that be a part of your life, can be a very satisfying thing, I would imagine. But
it is it's super satisfying. Like who are you talking to here? Like I love having hair. I love it. I love, not having to worry about the plugginess that I used to have from the first two surgeries. But I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times more. If I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have gotten a hair transplant.
So wild. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, again, I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. Do I regret it? No. No, because going through what I've gone through has made me who I am today, and I like who I am today. But from strictly an anxiety viewpoint and a confidence destroyer viewpoint, I would have, if head shaving was fashionable in the early 90s, I would have done it. I would have done it. I was 7 years too early-ish, because around 2000 is when it started to look cool. You started to look tough if you had a shaved head. And obviously you weren't, like 400 pounds. So, but 7 years prior, you looked like a skinhead. You look like what's that movie with
American History X?
Yeah, exactly. American History. You looked like American History X, which was not a good look. It was a very bad look back in that day. So that's the only reason why I didn't do it. Sorry to cut you off.
Not at all. No, I mean, it's so interesting hearing your thought process too. So, but yeah, thanks, Joe. That's really helpful. Yeah. I mean, it's just something to put into my sphere of consideration. And, but yeah, I do want to reiterate for anyone listening again, the head shave method, at least if you haven't done it, in my experience, just what I was experiencing in my reality in terms of people's reactions was essentially nothing but positive. Yeah. So it's just all in my head and kind of my own thing. So
we all have our own demons, man.
Totally. Yeah, man.
We got our hang-ups we got to get past. But, look, if you do decide to have surgery, obviously, due diligence is key. Understand the factors that matter. Don't be, looking for the TAF, thick as fuck.
Right.
Look for naturalness and go from there, But I think your first steps is to dial in your medication, find the balance, find the type if you want to add something to it, and go from there. I mean, keeps is very convenient, obviously, but if you can't get what you need based on it, like if you decide to do changes in dosage or whatever, make your consideration on whether or not you want to stick with them.
Sure.
Yeah. All right.
Well, listen, thanks for all your help.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for calling.
Cool.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, 1-833-563-4247. Line is open for anyone to call into the main event. Had some good calls so far. I appreciate that last caller and his questions. I understand his situation. Like, I can't count how many guys I've talked to that are in the same situation. I'm glad when I hear. It makes me happy to hear when the head shaving has been tried, and then they realize that it's not for them. That is, it's a great indicator that someone is getting closer to being ready for surgery. And I say that not like encouraging people to have surgery or what have you for the sake of having surgery. I'm thinking of the very first hair transplant education class that I put out 7 years ago, I think, where I said, do not have a hair transplant. And the whole point of that was not to talk people out of having hair transplant surgery. It was to kind of get it in your head that if you aren't ready for the possible downsides, the potential downsides that are very real, then keep doing your research until you understand that, yes, if I go to Dr. whomever, that may be the best in the world for me, they're human, and screw-ups can happen. Sometimes there's no understandable reason why a screw-up happens. They just happen, and I could be less than thrilled with my result. So it's that kind of thinking that I like to see. I like to see in people that tells me that if they do actually wind up having surgery at some point, they'll be in a better position to be happy, because you can be happy with your hair transplant while still not having the best result, or should I say, accepting of your result. I hope that makes sense. Let's see what's going on in the chat room. Joel G. Just a question regarding shock loss. Can you give me a ballpark figure, percentage of how much is permanent? I don't know what you mean by that. If you go through shock loss, how much of the hair that's been shocked out is permanently shocked out? That's a very vague question with all kinds of different answers. I think I understand what that is, but it's not quantifiable, because you got different kinds of shock loss. You got surgical shock loss, and you got surgical shock loss from interruption of blood flow. You got surgical shock loss from transection, where you're physically destroying hairs with the tool that's being used to make incisions or to cut into the scalp. You have, you have medical shock loss from starting a new medication or a new treatment. They're several different kinds. So I can't say what percentage would be permanent. I hope that makes sense. I hope that answers your question. Let's see. Milk Drinker. Joe, have you ever seen someone go from a full head of hair to Norwood 7 after stopping meds? Good question. Full head of hair. How do you define that? Zero loss? No. I can't recall, but maybe. I don't know. It's hard to nail that one down. I have seen people, plenty of people actually, with strong heads of hair, say like a strong Norwood 2. They're on medication, they stop taking it, and then they go to a 4, 5, a week 5, but a 5. Yeah, I've seen aggressive loss after medication has been halted. Maybe that's a better answer for you. Hope that answers your question. Let's see. Women's Hair Loss Project, welcome. Good to see you in the room. Brotherbond 60, welcome, brother. If you shave your head, you run the risk of looking like an escaped mental patient. No. Well, okay, to be fair, it depends on your head shape. It depends on your head shape and how you present yourself as a person. If you're walking around looking like a bum, not taking care of yourself, and you have a shaved head, then sure. But that's the same for people that don't have a shaved head. I don't think that you can say automatically shaving your head makes you look like a escaped mental patient. But I understand what you're saying. Let's see. Yes, and Women's Hair Loss Project did shave her head, and I got to tell you, badass. Like, sometimes when a woman shaves her head, it's cool as shit. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just cool. Yeah, and Women's Hair Loss Project did it recently. I don't remember how long ago you did that, but it was maybe 6 weeks, maybe 2 months ago. But I saw it on Instagram. I was like, oh my God. Wow. Bravo, Women's Hair Loss Project. Let's see. FSK. Sarah Connor had a good head of hair and she was a mental patient, but it wasn't justified. Remember? She was right in the end. Anyway. All right. Okay. Oh, and by the way, phones are still open. 1-833-563-4247. That is toll free in North America. And of course, if you got a calling app of some sort, you can call me worldwide. I don't know if it would be free or not. Depends on if you got your calling app charged up. Let's see. So phone number 1-833-563-4247. We started a little bit late. Oh, and by the way, the reason why we started at 4 o'clock today, we're supposed to start at 4 o'clock today instead of 3, is because been working on a project. So I wasn't quite ready for the show. And I've also been turning a wrench in my car for the past several days as well, as a stress relief hobby of mine. Not to fix anything, but just to modify it. And a little bit of fixing here and there, just making it more of a resto mod, not a restoration. Anyway, see, do meds work well for high Norwoods? That's a great question, but it depends on what you mean by working well. I have seen some patients that were about a Norwood 7 have a very impressive result, but not to the point where people wouldn't say, oh, they're not losing their hair. I've seen lower Norwoods regained. So say like a Norwood 7, I've seen someone go to a Norwood 5 to where that turns them into a much better surgical candidate. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Let's see. Hey, Spencer, what's up? Rob? Why are you talking to Spencer? He's not in the room, is he? I don't see him. Yeah, I don't see him. Let's see. Nico F. Hey, Nico, are exosomes still a thing? Any progress, nuances with the treatment? Still expensive. It is still a thing. I don't know of any progress or nuances with the treatment. And yes, it's still expensive. Let's see the questions. Sergey, hello, Sergey. Привет. Joe, how much anesthesia injections impact graft survival and shock loss of native hair? That's a good question. It can actually affect shock loss simply because the body can go into shock by having too much anesthesia. But it also depends on what's mixed in with the anesthesia. So if you have too much of a mixture, then you can actually reduce blood flow to certain areas, and that can cause issues. Generally, it's not a problem in most cases. It would have to be, you'd have to have a sensitivity that's above and beyond what's considered to be normal, and the clinic would have to screw up badly to give you too much. There are cases like there's I forgot the term, but if you have one of these long extended surgeries where you're in the chair for 13 hours and you burn through anesthesia quickly because that's just how your body processes it, then that can be an issue where it's not too much at once or over a few times. It's just too much exposure for a long-term procedure, like a 13-hour surgery. That can cause issues in and of itself. But I'd say overall, it's not really common. I don't hear about it very much. It's probably more common in inexperienced clinics and turn and burn clinics, conveyor belt clinics. So, yeah, excuse me. Hope that helps. Let's see. Looking for more questions. Okay. Yeah, I don't really see more questions. Joe does need updated glasses. What? Why? I like my glasses. I have two pair. All right, all these compliments, I should come more often. Yeah, you should, of course. Women's Hair Loss Project, you're welcome here all the time. You should be here all the time. I would say every day, but I'm not even here every day. So anyway, all right, I'm going to put out one more call for phone calls. It's 5:27 p.m. Pacific time. The number is 1-833-563-4247, and I will be wrapping up here in just a moment. If I don't get any more calls, let's see. If you're naturally destined for Norwood 7, can meds at least keep you at a Norwood 6? Absolutely. Absolutely. Even a Norwood 7, taking medication can potentially hang on to what they have left. And it can be prevented from getting worse. And yes, a Norwood 7 can and does get worse in many cases. I jokingly refer to people that do go through that as like a Norwood 10, just in casual conversation. And it's just an indication to whomever you're talking to, if they're in the industry or they know about hair loss, a way of saying that they're really bald, like really bald. How bald is he? That dude's he's a Norwood 17, that kind of thing. But in reality, a Norwood 7, the sides and back can drop even further. The sides can actually move up from the bottom, retrograde alopecia, and the donor area itself can also thin out. And a Norwood 7 is not, by definition, not a candidate for surgery, because I've seen some just tremendous, miraculous turnarounds. Like you can look at John from Eugenics Hair Sciences. That dude was a full-on Norwood 7. Young, early 30s. I would have said no surgery. He's actually in the extreme hair loss video that I made for Eugenics about a month ago or a few weeks ago. Crazy result. Crazy result. Forgot the number of grafts, but he excuse me, he looks fantastic. And he's got more improvement to come. His crown is still thickening up, but it's one of those cases where I'm just really happy for the patient. It's just like, wow. So yeah, that can happen. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, she's a real deal. I met her in the flesh. Okay. Don't know who you're talking about there. Let's see. John from Eugenics has blonde hair, dense donor, and beard grafts, though. So, he's still a Norwood 7. And his donor wasn't, it didn't, at no point did it seem to be above average density. I'll just say that much. But, yeah, I mean, his result cannot be minimized for any reason whatsoever. His beard grafts, I don't recall there being it wasn't a super high percentage. I don't recall, but even if it is, it's a great resource for some cases. So, let's see. A hair transplant surgeon administered adrenaline to my recipient area. Oops. Before we started placing the new hairs to curb the bleeding, is this normal even if I wasn't bleeding that much? It is very normal. In many clinics, they will give adrenaline shots to reduce bleeding. Sometimes they'll, I don't want to say most clinics, but it is common in many clinics. That's a fact. All right, so maybe one more question. Yeah, no, of course. Most Norwood 7s cannot get a result as good as John's. Need realistic expectations. No question. I didn't say they could. I just said it was possible, and he's an example. I'm an example. I was a Norwood 6.5. Not that that's actually a thing, but I was beyond a 6, not quite a 7. Not bad. So, my hairline's not near, like John's hairline is pretty low considering where he started. It's much lower than mine, shockingly. So, anyway, let's see. Anything else here? Don't tell me to wake up. I can't see him. I don't see him in the chat room. All right, so I guess that's it. Yeah, all right. No calls? I'm out of here, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video. It's first time back in a while, and I'm going to try. I've said it before. I'm going to try to be more regular, but it's up to you guys. Like, are you going to hit the like button? Are you going to subscribe if you haven't subscribed? Are you going to comment down in the comment section based on the questions I asked at the beginning of this episode? If you do all of that stuff, then I'll come back probably tomorrow. So until tomorrow or Wednesday, probably tomorrow, I will see you all later. Bye-bye.